Can you still hear me?
Yes, sir, I can definitely hear you.
Okay, very good. I believe we're good to
Would you
go
like me to
then.
proceed?
I show you registered as Early Wiley,
Yes,
Criminal District Attorney, testifying on behalf of yourself,
yes.
and you are for House Bill 5, is that correct?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Okay, you may proceed with your testimony.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members for inviting me to testify. And the chair's already identified who I am. I'm Early Norvell Wiley, and I am the Criminal District Attorney in Kaufman County. For those that don't know, Kaufman County is a growing county. We're a population close to 200,000. And as the chair has stated, I am testifying for House Bill 5 for time. And because I did enjoy and have testified before with many members of the first panel, I want you to know on behalf of myself that I support the testimony of the law enforcement panel. And I would adopt many of the things that were said. In fact, probably everything that was said. And so I don't want to repeat those same statements, but to emphasize some of the problems that we have in prosecution. Obviously, the panelists or law enforcement partners that we work with every day. Our county is one of the counties because there were some distinctions at the end of the panel discussion on prosecutorial discretion and who prosecutes THC cases with the current legislation. And in Kaufman County, these are cases that we prosecute. But understand that there are the complexities of the testing, which the cost of that, as they went over with you guys, as you made really good inquiries, the cost of prosecution and the cost that falls on the law enforcement agencies to pay for that testing for us to be able to get a quantitative amount of 0.3 or above and distinguish that. And like some of the panelists, I really frankly wasn't aware of this problem. I mean, we know when the bill passed and we went from just the substance of THC being present and the quantity that it was a problem, but I really wasn't aware of how much the increased quantity of, as it was explained, this high level of THC, and they were explaining it as, our marijuana. I didn't experience that growing up, but I understood the analogy they were talking about. It is very high concentrations of THC when you do the quantitative testing. And it really came to my attention with the age group of the 17 and the 25-year-olds, the school district, police bringing it to our attention of what we're doing with these kids with these high potency vapes. And it just became really apparent through grand jury that we needed to go back to the sellers that were selling this to the young people that are young adults and that are caught up in this, because it's just something that happened in the last few years that we really became aware of the potency, the danger, and the community members have spoken that these, we can call them sellers, but they're really drug dealers that are working out of strip malls selling this to our kids. We have a case similar, and DA Willis is coming up after me, that we have a case that's under investigation, and that when we did the testing, we had to decide what drug users or drug dealers, I'm sorry, that we were going to test, because there were so many different ones that were doing this in a county our size that's smaller than Collin County. And it was amazing that there were 9 and 10 different head shops that were selling this lethal amount and very high amount of THC. And so we began educating ourselves about this, and we've learned how dangerous this is to our young people. I've been on panels, and again, it's beyond my experience, except through listening to testimony about the effects of THC on young people up to the ages of 25. We're going to be very aggressive with the prosecution of this as long as our law enforcement partners want to pay for the testing. But many of the small agencies cannot pay for the testing. I was there on the panel. I've listened to you guys for a couple of hours. I thought that the video that was brought by Chief Dye about the undercover operations, I can tell you with our investigation, I could bring you similar video of the people in the stores directing people to what type. This is the good stuff. This is the stuff that's going to get you really high. This is what's lethal. This is where you start. It sounds just like any undercover when you're dealing with drug dealers, except that we have endorsed this behavior with the state. And, it's a very, we're in a horrible situation with what's happening right now. As probably the best thing to say at this point for us is to ban would send a clear message. It would be easy to test for the presence. I think we will always be chasing the science, which is a problem for prosecution, as pointed out, that we have the burden. We have to have the testing done, and we have to show beyond a reasonable doubt that the substance is illegal. And I think unless we have a ban, that we're going to be forever chasing it wherever it goes. And at the end, I thought that you guys came up with the conclusion, if we're not going to ban it, then probably better to leave it as it is than to regulate it and really open up Pandora's box. And I'll just yield my time back if I have any. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We will hold questions for this entire panel until we hear from each panel member. Okay, Chair recognizes David Holmes, who is a county attorney testifying on behalf of yourself, and you are testifying neutral on House Bill 5. Is that correct?
I registered neutral. I'm in favor of House Bill 5.
Would you like us to change your registration to in favor or leave it as neutral?
You can leave it as neutral, but I'm just letting the committee know.
Okay, so we're showing you testifying neutral on the bill. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. You may proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and honorable members of the committee, and I thank you all for allowing Ms. Wiley and Mr. Willis and I to appear by Zoom this morning. I'm a little bit different than Ms. Wiley and Mr. Willis. They're criminal district attorneys from much larger jurisdictions. I'm a county attorney in the more rural jurisdiction of Hill County. We're a county of about 40,000 people. And I just want the committee to know a few of the practical issues we're dealing with in prosecuting possession of marijuana and other THC related crimes. First and foremost, Texas DPS through the Highway Patrol, their policy is still to arrest people in possession of marijuana and charge them as such. Other municipal police organizations might cite them for an offense of possession of drug paraphernalia or illegal transport of hemp materials under the Agriculture Code. However, DPS is still arresting for possession of marijuana, but they won't test misdemeanor quantities of marijuana. And so if we have someone plead not guilty, we have to send the contraband to a private laboratory to be tested. We have to pay for that out of pocket. And if the case gets set for trial, we have to pay fairly exorbitant litigation fees to the private laboratory to get them to come testify for us at trial. One case I wanted to make the committee aware of, it's novel to our office, but I had an investigator from the comptroller's office come into our office several months ago and drop off a case where they had investigated a storefront right out here on I-35 in Hillsboro, tobacco shop, if you will, that was selling illegally packaged product, THC products. And when I say that, I think you're all aware of the cartoon character or celebrity likeness type packaging that is not legal to market to young people. And so they have charged the store owner with, I believe it's a Class B misdemeanor. One of the things that we found really interesting in talking with the investigator is they did what's called a seize in place. So they seized the contraband in place by putting some sort of a label on it, but they leave it there at the store where they're charging this store owner with the crime. Well, as you might imagine, that presents all sorts of chain of custody issues. The state's reason for not seizing the contraband and storing it is that it's a fire hazard because of the lithium-ion batteries that these vape cartridges contain. In addition, the comptroller's office wants for me, the prosecutor, to ask the court to order the defendant in the criminal case to pay the cost of properly disposing of the contraband. In this particular case, where it's a case of THC cartridges that are packaged improperly, he indicated to us that in order to properly dispose of that case of cartridges, it would probably cost in the neighborhood of $10,000. And so for a Class B misdemeanor, they want for me to ask a court to order that defendant to pay, I guess, as cost of court or restitution, upwards of $10,000 to dispose of these vape cartridges. And that's problematic for me. My real concern as a county attorney, I have juvenile jurisdiction, and the THC vape issue in our schools, even in our rural schools here in Hill County, it's rampant. The schools are pulling their hair out dealing with these THC vape cartridges. Kids hide them in the ceiling panels in the school. We now have to have vape detectors in our bathrooms at schools. And I'm following the law as a juvenile prosecutor, and when these kids take these THC vape cartridges to school, being a drug-free zone, they're committing a third-degree felony, and I'm charging them with a third-degree felony, and I'm adjudicating them with a third-degree felony, which makes them eligible for commitment to the Texas Juvenile Justice Department. And in a state of 30+ million people, where we have around 800 beds available for TJJD commitment, do we really want to make these kids eligible to be committed to TJJD for taking a THC vape to school? I don't know. But again, I prosecute people for possession of marijuana, like the state law says. I prosecute these juveniles for third-degree felonies for taking THC vapes to school. I'm certainly not speaking for other prosecutors, because every office around the state treats these cases differently. And the way the law is now is exactly the reason they're treated so differently. And so I'm very concerned about what the scientific evidence is going to show in the years to come with our young people ingesting these THC products. I don't expect it's going to be very good. And so therefore I am for a ban of THC products in Texas. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your testimony. Chair recognizes Greg Willis, Collin County District Attorney, testifying on behalf of yourself, and you are testifying for House Bill 5. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Please proceed with your testimony.
Well, good morning, Mr. Chairman Van Dever and members. I'm Greg Willis, Criminal District Attorney for Collin County. Collin County is now up to 1.3 million residents, and we're the second fastest growing county in the country. My job is seeking justice in the courtroom and ensuring public safety for our citizens. I'll give you the bottom line first. Without statewide labs, inspectors, and spot checks, any regulation of consumable THC will be legalization in practice. That's why I support a ban. I'll give you 5 supporting reasons and then I'll expand on them, but I'll give you the 5 first. 1, the danger is here now. Secondly, the testing is the choke point. Third, if you regulate without funding, then you legalize by default. Fourth, not enforcing these cases, I think, is a policy choice to tolerate a gray market that harms kids and public safety. Number 5, in real courtrooms, there's only 2 paths that work. So I'll go back to my first point. The danger is here now. What's on Texas shelves today is not the low potency marijuana of decades past that's been covered already. In Allen last August, officers raided 9 vape shops. Products labeled as legal hemp tested between 7% and 78% THC, way above the legal 0.3% limit. That's not a technicality. That's high-grade intoxication. It's packaged like snacks and flavored vapes that teenagers recognize instantly. And the harm is real. At a Prosper graduation party in May, 2 teens resold THC gummies that they had bought at a Plano smoke shop. 9 students ingested them, 7 showed severe overdose-like symptoms, and 8 of them ended up in the hospital. These were graduating seniors, kids with their whole lives ahead of them, sick in the middle of what should have been a safe celebration. Second point, testing is the choke point, as has been discussed. In court, labels don't decide cases, lab reports do. The number that matters is total THC after heating, because heating converts THCA into delta-9 THC. No field kit can give that number. Even when a product looks illegal, it must go to a crime lab, be tested with validated methods, and come back with results that survive cross-examination. That costs time and it costs money. The system you can't test is a system that we can't prosecute. Third point, to regulate without funding is to legalize by default. I think real regulation would need 4 things. Number 1, a clear legal standard using total THC. Number 2, in-state labs with fast turnaround. Number 3, licensing plus surprise inspection statewide. And number 4, batch to lab traceability with penalties for fake or missing paperwork. Without those, retail THC is legalization in practice. And once normalized, you will not reel it back in with occasional stings and unfunded mandates. 4th reason, why we enforce when others don't. I believe not enforcing these cases is a policy choice to tolerate a gray market that harms kids and reduces public safety. The Prosper Party I told you about is a perfect example. We had mislabeled products, teen dealers, multiple hospitalizations. Without enforcement, that kind of sale becomes business as usual. The law still protects Texas families, and uniform enforcement is basic fairness, both to parents, to non-users, and victims of drug-related crime. Now, we do use discretion and diversion for the right cases. That's just being a good steward. But announcing you won't enforce entire categories is not stewardship. Number 5, in real courtrooms, only 2 paths work. From the legal side, the choice is clear. Either fund a full statewide backbone, including labs, inspectors, spot checks, and penalties, or pass a ban. Anything else is legalization in practice. It's not my job to design a market. My job is to tell you what will hold up under the rules of evidence. If you choose regulation without that backbone, I believe you are choosing a policy that will collapse the moment mislabeled high-potency products go back on the shelves while cases wait in line for lab results. So the bottom line is this: these products are high potency and youth visible. Labels can't be trusted. Proof in court depends upon the lab testing after heating. Without funded labs, inspectors, and spot checks, I think regulate really just means to legalize it. A ban is the only policy we can enforce today, and my duty is to keep Collin County safe under the laws that you write. Thank you very much for the opportunity to testify today.
Okay, thank you for your testimony. So it seems to me what I hear a common theme among all three of the prosecutors is that you will prosecute, but you need adequate testing, you need adequate labs to do the testing and to provide you with a case that you can prosecute and win in court. Is that an accurate statement?
I believe so, Chairman Van Dever. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. When you guys are prosecuting these, on these charges of THC, do you see very often an incident where there are other crimes associated with the use of THC, or THC associated with the use of, in the carrying out of other crimes, or is it just simply someone who has a higher level than legal THC product with them?
Well, we've seen a mixed bag. I mean, frankly, I think Greg hit on the fact that the schools and what you're saying, the kids he described in Collin County, that was a one-off. That was just all they were doing. But when you contact other defendants, we have other cases that we make with it. So I have seen just the one incident, but I've also seen that along with other illegal drugs. So that's just been my experience in Kaufman County. Sometimes when we've had stops, and that's an intervention with DPS having a stop for driving facts and then able to do a search in the vehicle incident for officer safety, that's when you will see other drugs involved and maybe a weapon, other crimes. It goes all across the spectrum, but the other DAs may have different circumstances that they've seen.
I certainly have prosecuted more and more DWI cases where THC is the intoxicant. They can be difficult because we don't have a presumptive level. I believe Colorado did for a little while after they legalized it, but they've had to do away with it. But I can tell you that the THC products that are out there, and even the organic green leafy substance, it has such higher THC concentration nowadays that I get DWI cases where people are literally passed out behind the wheel and they haven't had a drop of alcohol. They're intoxicated on THC, and they're passed out in the middle of the road or on the side of the road. So from a misdemeanor prosecutor perspective, that's what I see for them.
Well, I'll echo what my two fellow prosecutors have mentioned. I'll also say, even though it's not directly responsive, Mr. Chairman, is that one of the things that we see is a very otherwise promising young people, and they get exposed to this high potency synthetic THC kind of unknowingly because it's not packaged and labeled correctly. And some of these kids, it appears that they're kind of maimed for life. And it's a devastating thing, not just for them, but their families to see that.
How many THC cases, or what percentage would you say you guys take to trial of the THC cases that are brought to you by law enforcement? How many do you take to trial? And of those that you take to trial, what is your success rate in getting a prosecution and getting a conviction?
I know I don't have that number on me. I don't know, Early or David. Do you have that?
The chairman brings a great question, and I don't have that. Should have probably thought to prepare that. It's a good question. I know anecdotally, when I talked to some of the chiefs of the court, we talked about, I talked to them about that number, but I don't have the statistics. Frankly, Mr. Chairman, the testing and the defense uses the testing against us, and so we have to go with the more expensive liquid testing. I'm not going to try to say that long word, but the liquid testing, and so that's very expensive. And so the agencies don't want to pay for that, but when we do go to trial, it becomes more expensive. And so if this is we are creative, we use our discretion for those that don't have other prior records, they're good candidates for pretrial diversion if they quit using these substances. So that's our first one of our tools in our toolkit. And then for people that have other cases and other records, a lot of those cases disposed of by pleas. And then if we go to trial, we understand it's going to be expensive and the agency has to pay for the more expensive testing. And so when we do go to trial, it depends on I would say sometimes the defense attorney and their knowledge to confuse our juries about the different testing and trying to persuade them that we don't know what the substance is beyond a reasonable doubt, but we have been successful. But I think people are holding their breath and waiting to see really what you guys are going to do in the legislature. And we'll see, because right now it's illegal if it's over 0.3. And so if we have ambiguity on some of the labs, we've talked to some of the chemists at the labs, and they are a little confused in their own expertise about the different compounds and what's legal and what's illegal. So we are having some struggling with that, and THC and what that means when it's heated. So we have we are really in a little gray area here, but so far we've been pretty successful when we finally do go to trial at expense to the trial process for us.
Okay.
It's very few, Mr. Chairman, from my perspective. And again, I'm almost all misdemeanor crimes. But one of the things that helped us when the legislature legalized the hemp products several years back was they created this agricultural code violation of illegally transporting hemp material and made it a Class C with a fine up to $1,000. And so most of the POM under 2 cases that we have filed, we plead those to the illegal transport of hemp and get $1,000 out of the defendants because they're happy to take a Class C. We did adjudicate a gentleman this morning for possession of marijuana under 2 ounces because he was late for court and the judge made him test. And guess what? He was positive for THC. So rather than have his bond deemed insufficient and go to jail, he just went ahead and took a conviction for possession of marijuana under 2 ounces.
Okay. Mr. Holmes, you testified that DPS is bringing you misdemeanor cases, but their lab is not testing for those. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but would it be your testimony that it would be good for the state of Texas to provide you with the testing services you need to prosecute those cases that the DPS officers are bringing you?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It caught with the private lab that I believe most of the agencies in Texas use is Armstrong Labs in Arlington. It's $250 per test, I believe was last number I had, and then the services of their testimony, if the case does get set for trial, that's in the thousands.
Okay. Members, other questions for this panel? Representative Pearson.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you all for being here. I think I heard, DA Willis, you say that some of these kids are being charged with felonies for these products?
I don't know if I mentioned that, but that is a correct statement. Yes, Representative.
Okay. I went from frustrated from the previous panel knowing that these drug dealers have been selling to these kids without consequence, apparently. But now my understanding is not only have these stores been selling illegal products to kids, but it's the kids that are being hit with the felony. So that's something new that I learned today, and I think my heart breaks for those parents. I also heard testimony from law enforcement that they would prefer the status quo over regulation. My question for you is, have any of the DAs, have you or anyone you're aware of been involved in prosecuting some of these folks who are selling illegal drugs out of these stores?
Well, we do have cases that come in, and the case is not going to reach my office unless there's been an arrest and investigation. And so in those cases, yes, we prosecute, and of course every case is a little different. If it's I can't comment too much on the Prosper case since it's a pending case, but we take all factors into account when we're deciding what does justice look like in this situation. But the kids go in the store, and even if they think they know they're going to be getting a very intoxicating product, the label invariably says it's less than 0.3%. And so one of the challenges in prosecuting is they say, well, I was relying upon the label. And then the store can say that too. Now, if you're deep into the circumstances, then you know that it's just a wink, wink, nod, nod. Everybody knows that it's very high potency THC. That's why the retailer's selling it, and that's why the person is buying it typically. But with the way that it's packaged and labeled, and you combine that with the challenges of quantitative testing, it becomes pretty big, just kind of a huge deal to go to trial on something like that.
And so do you think that, I don't know if you heard some of the previous discussion, but one of the things that's come up in, with this ban specifically, and opposed to whether or not we can pass a ban or keeping the status quo, from your perspective, do you think that the ban would be more helpful, or do you think that age gating and local control and all those other things would be helpful, or no?
I think practically speaking, just from my perspective, a ban is more helpful because I cannot imagine the legislature funding a regulatory scheme that would be effective, because it seems like it would be so expensive. And so that's why I want to shy away from the regulation. I think it can be a great solution if it's funded adequately. But my impression, just as a citizen and understanding budgets and things like that, is it seems like there's no chance of getting adequately funded a sufficient regulatory scheme. And that's why I think a ban is preferable.
Thank you for your personal insight on that. It is very helpful. My fear now is that the status quo means the drug dealers get to walk around and still sell their drugs to the kids who are going to get hit with the felonies, and that's very disturbing. So you've given us a lot to think about. Thank you.
Members, other questions for this panel? Okay, thank you all so much. We appreciate your testimony this morning. Appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to help us sort through this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir.